The judge had already called for an emergency halt to the match. The match was unquestionably over. Solar System Team 3-0. The arena was quiet. Nobody had imagined such an outcome. Damn, the solar system was a wolf in sheep's clothing. How had this happened? How had this happened? The bloodlust from Luo Fei's eyes gradually vanished. If it was not for the emergency halt, he could very well have killed his opponent. He had to control himself. More important was that Ramses had violated Fatty's taboo. The paramedics smelled the cloying stench of urine and feces. Perhaps everybody was prepared to face death, but to be clawed out of your cockpit was a terrifying experience. Fatty patted his own pudgy face, adjusting his expression before he stepped out of his cockpit. He walked towards his opponent. Sorry about that, did I hurt you? As he approached, the medical personnel were scared back a few steps. Fatty rubbed his head bashfully. He was really a good person. On the platform, the Atlantis team members did not feel much. His skill level was not bad, but still far from sufficient. At this moment, Manalasuo's bowl had been paralyzed. The battle was over. He had initially thought that the only monster in the solar system was Wang Zheng. He now saw that he was a monster leading a whole pack of monsters. This was the first disaster of this IG. Only, Manalasuo was but the first sacrifice. Vincent took the field for the fourth match. Manalasuo's last hope. They were still holding on to hope. As long as they won this match, the solar system would have no more cards to play. They could not possibly have so many monsters. Manalasuo still had hope. Vincent had become the leader of Manalasuo at the age of 19 because he was undefeatable. He could still bring them back from the brink of disaster. His skill level was galaxy level. Although the solar system had brought such considerable strength to the table, Manalasuo were still confident, because Vincent was unperturbed. The opponents were strong, but it was still manageable. It was almost time for the win to be decided. The solar system side naturally sent Wang Zheng. If they were smarter, they would have sent a weaker opponent to tank the loss, but this was clearly not the style of the solar system. In the crowd's eyes, it seemed like he liked to take risks when he should be prudently strategizing, and strategizing when he needed to risk it all. Fourth round, Lita's battle, and also match point for the solar system team. Wang Zheng versus the Manalasuo super genius Vincent. Here at the solar system side, battles were proceeding like wildfire. In other zones too, similar fights were ensuing. Besides a few easy walkovers, the majority still needed to be decided. Zone A Aslan versus Hercules Star. The Astina Federation was matched up against the Sagittarius team. The Hercules Star had drawn the shortest straw, but unexpectedly the team was not as gloomy as imagined, on the contrary. They were ecstatic, whooping as one. Their dreams of world domination began with bringing Aslan under their swords. So what if the Hercules Star was not a strong nation? In matters of individual strength, the Hercules Star people were never satisfied. This batch, especially, had a few geniuses, and they disdained the likes of Aslan and Arbiter. Finally a worthy opponent. Eradicate them. What sword saint, sword magician, all self-affixed titles. What a joke. Although it's a bit early to show our killing hand, since the opponent is Aslan, it's worth it. Destroy them. Leader Mead raised his hands happily. His face was the most euphoric of them all. Against the indomitable will of the Hercules Star, the Aslan Empire's side was still taking it easy. As the results showed, ideals were often more colorful than the gritty reality, and so the Hercules Star was beaten soundly. Furthermore, it had been by Aslan's reserve members. Although the process was definitely a tad slow, the Aslanian people were clearly still in their comfort zone and not eager to show off. The saying went that those who looked too hot were destined to fail. Until date, nobody had dared to claim that they had the power to take the champion. Under such circumstances, a mature state of mind was undoubtedly very important. Aurora and Oz were having a pleasant chat. I just heard the news that the entire Atlantis team went to Zone D, led personally by the prince. No cause for concern. Atlantis has always been interested in Earth's civilization. These ancient civilizations are always a bit nostalgic. If they make it into the top 16, that would be worth noticing, though. In Zone C, a special battle was ongoing. Before the match, they had known that only one team would walk away alive. The Darkness Empire against the Immortal Fairy Star team. This was a karmic encounter. Both countries had ties to Keelung, the famous explorer of the Star Voyager era. Keelung was born in the Darkness Empire, founded in the early days of the interplanetary giant navigation age. He grew up living in the slums and dreamed of becoming an interstellar explorer. To be an explorer, one must first have a vessel that could traverse the universe for a long time. For his dream, Keelung had done everything: fraud, smuggling. As long as it was profitable, he had done it. But right as he was about to earn enough money to buy a deep space explorer ship, he had lost everything in a gamble at the preeminent House of Banda of the Darkness Empire. The bold Keelung had led his troop on a stealth attack on the Banda family, snatching away their ultimate explorer ship, and inadvertently exposing their illegal armory, throwing the Darkness Empire into chaos. The disorder had finally been quelled by the Banda family. The royal family had become their puppet. Using the name of the general, the Banda family firmly controlled the country. However, due to the scandal, many other countries in the galaxy imposed sanctions. The strength of the Darkness Empire was severely weakened. And it missed the most crucial period of expansion in the era of the Great Voyager, adopting a conservative defense. Keelung became the most wanted criminal in the Darkness Empire. The Immortal Fairy Star was located at the far edge of the Milky Way. Its name had originated from a misunderstanding. In the middle of the Star Voyager era, Keelung, who had already become a great explorer, found a supermassive black hole. He entered, and after 3 days of wormhole travel, he arrived at a foreign galaxy. The star field was filled with nebulas and magnetic storms, to the point where even deep space had been affected. The only form of entrance or exit was that wormhole. Because of charting errors and limits of technology at the time, Keelung thought that they had already left the Milky Way behind, and entered into the neighboring Andromeda galaxy. Because of the Darkness Empire's arrest warrant, and the fact that the only access point was the wormhole, making it easy to defend and difficult to attack, Keelung decided to settle and build the present-day Immortal Fairy Galaxy Alliance. Only a century after its establishment, when the Star Voyager era ended, was it discovered that it was still located in the Milky Way. But the name of Immortal Fairy Galaxy Alliance had already been acknowledged by the galaxy, and remained. It could be said that Keelung had established the Immortal Fairy Galaxy Alliance and was their founding father. Keelung was also responsible for the Darkness Empire losing their opportunity to become a superpower, and was a national criminal. As they entered peaceful times, both sides remained at odds, developing at furious paces. The Immortal Fairy Star, due to its unique location, monopolized a few rare minerals, and was booming as well. Other countries enjoyed their quarrel, occasionally creating opportunities. Before the battle begun, both sides had already started the taunts. "Black dogs, today will be your doomsday," the Immortal Fairy Star team members directly said, pointing their middle fingers in unison. The Darkness Empire looked composed, but they had a wild gleam in their eyes. If it was not for the cursed Keelung, the Darkness Empire could very well be taking the place of Aslan or Arbiter. Especially the captain, Slauberg, the oldest son of the Banda family, and the first heir. In the recent century, this was the most promising heir of the Banda family. Whether in personality or strength, he was the most outstanding in the family. Whereas this iteration of the Immortal Fairy Star's captain was Keelung's direct descendant, Liang Keelung. Both parties knew, as did the representative groups, that the clash would be a life and death struggle. In terms of power, the Immortal Fairy Star and Darkness Empire had always been evenly matched. This iteration as well, the predictions were about the same. Their fight would be a bloody massacre like that of the Asura. Slauberg Banda was the first to take the field, to hisses from the Immortal Fairy Star team. Slauberg raised his right hand, pointing at the Immortal Fairy Star team leader, Liang, his eyes cold. Did he dare to take up the challenge? Liang stood up, the temperature of his eyes equally low. He raised his thumb, then turned his fist into a thumbs down. Bring it on. Neither side gave any ground. Both were confident attack types that needed no complicated strategy. Since they had started with the leader, then he should answer the challenge as their leader. Their battle was not just about win or lose. Their enmity was too deep, and, especially considering their personal history, evading the battle was impossible. The Fairy Star team started to chant, Kill, kill, kill. In comparison, the Darkness Empire's mood was solemn, although their murderous intent was equally thick. Both sides to the field. Slauberg chose the Darkness Empire's Super Mech King of Hell IV, while Liang chose Immortal Fairy Star's Super Mech Fairy King. King of Hell against Fairy King. A world of hatred would be shown in their struggle. Everybody looked on with dread. This would be a wicked battle, only one would walk out on with their own two legs. Boom! King of Hell used a death sickle, a rarely seen long weapon. At this time, a long knife cut could be seen on its left breast. It had sustained it from the clash earlier in a combination of weapon and speed. It had a superior reach, but suffered in close combat. Luckily, it had just been a graze, not a deep wound. Liang was in his best form. He licked his lips. In these life and death battles, his speed ability X senses were at their best. As a direct descendant of Qilong, to kill the first heir of the Banda family in the IG was a joyous affair indeed. The Fairy Star side was in high spirits too. Oh, Liang would surely win. The Darkness Empire side had become even more sober. They had not even wavered the slightest when Slauberg slipped. Uncaring, boom, the King of Hell IV charged towards the Fairy King mech, taking the initiative. Liang did not retreat, meeting it head-on. Suddenly, Liang was startled, his pupils widening. The world had gone black. No, it was not the world that had changed, but Liang had lost his sight. The energy shields flared to life, but it was already too late. The death sickle scythed through like cutting wheat, slicing through the Fairy King mech's head. The entire mech lost control, stumbling forward through inertia. Turning, the King of Hell's sickle cleaved into the cockpit. Boom! The whooping Fairy Star team felt their cries wither in their throats. Darkness Empire was still quiet, looking on with knowing satisfaction. Their leader was the strongest heir to the Banda family in 100 years. The moment that the Fairy Star's Liang had stepped up, he was already swinging in the noose. Liang's death had unnerved the Fairy Star team. In the subsequent matches, even if both sides were fairly matched, the Fairy Star team always slipped up, fumbling head and foot. They were trounced 4-0, eliminated and suffering. The 3 matches had resulted in 3 deaths. Darkness Empire, in the top 32, had finally started to bare their fangs. The Darkness screen ability X not only obscured one's vision, but also instilled psychological terror. This was not a hallucinatory ability X simply put, it was the Darkness Empire's unique darkness falling onto its opponent. It was an ability even rarer than warping or displacement. The cruelty of the Darkness Empire had raised discussion, especially with their purposeful killings. But this was simply hot air, because the Darkness Empire would not stop. But at this moment, Zone D was in hushed silence, because Wang Zheng had again chosen Manalasuo's Golden Wheel mech. By now Manalasuo had lost some of their casual arrogance. Somehow they were already behind 0-3, and their last hope rested on Vincent's shoulders. As for Wang Zheng's choice, Vincent felt a slight tinge of puzzlement, but confidently made his own choice. Radiant Wheel King. This was Manalasuo's super mech. Any great country, like Manalasuo, would not stumble at the same place. Although the Golden Wheel mech was a failure, it had provided material, which had seen light in the Radiant Wheel King. This was the evolved version of the Golden Wheel mech. A fighter-type mech, with terrifying forward movement ability, as well as a ridiculous attack power that left people stupefied. It was rumored that on Manalasuo, only mechness could use it, because such mecha took a high physical and mental toll, requiring one to be an expert at multitasking to pilot. To fully unlock its capabilities, one had to multitask 3 activities simultaneously. The Manalasuo team members had been high profile, whereas the leader, Vincent, had been rather low profile. This allowed even the representative group to maintain their peace. But at this juncture, it was clearly a life and death matter. It was time to go all out, without considering the eventual match with Aslan. First, they had to clear this hurdle. If they crumbled while facing the solar system team, their longtime rivals, Aslan, would fall over laughing. When Vincent chose the Radiant Wheel King, the other members had heaved a collective sigh of relief. They had already turned their attention to the next battle, discussing the competency of the substitutes. They had absolute faith that it was impossible for each and every member of the solar system to be that strong. They were now about to confirm the limits of the solar system team. Captain, Gu, Zhongshan cupped his hands and screamed. Those around him stared at him like he was a clown. At these crucial moments, what was needed was calm, not such noisy screaming. Zhongshan did not care. He looked around proudly, as though the match had already been won. Has Wang Zheng trained with the Golden Wheel before? Meng Tian asked, suddenly worried. Golden Wheel, what is that? Zhongshan had only heard of it before. Doesn't matter. They're all just mecha, about the same. Ignorance is a terrifying thing. Lear sniffed. Looking at the arena, he was a little worried. Wang Zheng never played his cards predictably. They could not afford to lose this battle. It seemed as though the solar system held all the cards, but if they lost, the tide of battle could quickly swing back towards Manalasuo. This opportunity should not slip through their fingers. Lear did not bear much confidence in the remaining members of the team. But he was not the leader. TCH. Wang Zheng is a genius. Golden Wheel, Silver Wheel, he'll thrash them and that will be the end of it. Achilles barked a short laugh and shook his head. The Golden Wheel is a failure that Manalasuo built, while the Radiant Wheel King is the success built on the ruins of the Golden Wheel mech failure. In Manalasuo, only Mechnus can pilot it. By the looks of it, Vincent has already broken the record of youngest Mechnist. Manalasuo is really something. The most outstanding to present had been the captains of teams like Arbiter, but Manalasuo in this iteration was surprisingly low profile. Could they have more up their sleeves? Your Highness, the Earthlings are throwing the match again. It looks like 3-0, but they're in a dangerous spot. I've used this Golden Wheel mech before. It's a completely idealized mech, and not suited for practical battle at all, Asia's said. Compared to Asia's, Bordia was a little more sensitive. Although His Highness the Prince was young, he was a god amongst men, possessing an unimaginable sense. Bordia concentrated on Wang Zheng. Ever since they had arrived, His Highness had paid attention to little else. Perhaps this person is just suited to use the Golden Wheel mech. Every mech has a soul. If an affinity between souls exists, even a tin can could become a god. Kiki, Bordia, you think too much. As for Wang Zheng, almost no one understood his choice, save two. Mengao and Bull inadvertently exchanged glances. The pressure on Bull was immense, although his chances of winning were not inexistent. Strength in group battles did not equate to strength in 1v1s. There was a chance. At the entrance, a lonely figure quietly sat in a corner. It was Kang Zan. He had not left. With a conflicted heart, he had made a decision then. He still did not feel his decision was wrong, because if Wang Zheng had really shown his true colors then, they would have been robbed of their morale, and finished at the end. But in the end, they had lost, and he had shouldered too much. His captainship had been taken away. He did not regret this. One must always face the consequences of one's decision. But he had to know if Wang Zheng really had that kind of power, and if the video was real. If it was a lie, then he might very well kill himself against a wall. Nobody paid any attention to Kang Zan. A loser was a worthless person. The Golden Wheel mech's position was considerably further away, and took some time to arrive. Nobody had anticipated that such an unpopular mech would be chosen. In comparison, Vincent's mech was very quickly readied. The shining silver Radiant Wheel King. Radiantly designed on all 8 sides, maximum air friction minimization, and a turbo effect when it entered high speeds. This was the peak of Manalasuo's developmental niche. The mech was medium-sized, and its weapons were 2 specially manufactured apertures. It has to be said that the Manalasuo scientists were mad. They had even utilized superconductor alloys to create such perverse weapons. The superconductor radiant wheels were incomparably durable in close combat. At mid to long-range distances, they could release a superpower wheel once charged, which was super effective against energy shields. A killing move with no weaknesses. A super mech suited for both far and close fights, but this mech's requirements were unbelievably high. The pilot's energy level must be a rank C ability X user, and when it came to physical condition, one must be a mid-class rank D ability X user at least. Only then could they control such a mech. The superconductor radiant wheels were definitely superior to the golden wheels, and did not need to be retracted to be fired again. Science was the highest power. It was widely held that the Radiant Wheel King was the mature version of the Golden Wheel mech, and that the Golden Wheel mech could not even be considered a finished product. The mech had arrived. The Golden Wheel was about the same size as Radiant Wheel King, but some clear differences in detail were apparent. The Golden Wheel was coarsely done. The two huge golden wheels were especially dull. Most importantly, Vincent's understanding of the Golden Wheel mech was equally perfect. As Manalasuo's genius mechanist, he had tried to conquer this mech which had brought shame to the Empire. His final work was not bad, bringing out a certain level of killing power, although it was unstable. In all honesty, it was still not suited for practical battle. Against a normal opponent, it was serviceable, but it would be playing with fire to bring it out in such a crucial match. Using the Radiant Wheel King to crush the Golden Wheel was a sure win. Perhaps his opponent intended to use this to provoke him, but he would not fall for it. He would proceed as though Wang Jung could use the Golden Wheel. Both sides bowed. Neither Wang Jung nor Vincent was the kind to conduct verbal assaults. The pilots entered their mecha, loaded in, and harmonized. The two mech fighters' eyes lit up. Solar System Federation Team and Manalasuo Empire Team's deciding battle. The atmosphere quietened. Both mecha walked forward a few steps. As they stood, a strange mood started to coalesce. Only a madman could fully understand such a mech. Vincent was exactly such a person. His life was filled with mech. He was born with it, and had vowed to become the strongest fighter in Manalasuo, no, in the Milky Way. The first step was very close. He had already become the youngest mechanist in history, and the IG was undoubtedly a stage for him to break new ground. It only took one look for those who knew to understand the man and the mechanist. The way he moved looked unremarkable, but there was no opening. The solar system was really on the rise now, to suddenly have so many pros. Unfortunately, they were about to be trampled beneath Manalasuo's foot. The Radiant Wheel King, this was one of the top 10 mecha in the galaxy. In the immortal name of the Empire, fight! The pledge firmly in Vincent's heart, the mech roared to life. The Radiant Wheel King attacked. But at the same time, the Golden Wheel made its move as well. The superconductor Radiant Wheel and the Golden Wheel clashed together, ping. Just one blow, and the whole arena was silent, a super battle. It looked like a mere attack, but in the moment of clashing, Vincent's two superconductor wheels had each attacked 5 times, while Wang Jung's golden wheels had equally blocked 5 times. Both mecha merely clashed as they passed, and hurriedly turned around. The first pass was evenly matched, but it was clear that the capabilities of the Radiant Wheel King were just that little bit better. It turned just that little bit faster, but the most fearful was yet to come. Vincent continued turning his mech furiously and, without warning, unleashed one of Radiant Wheel King's killer moves, straight back to hell. The Radiant Wheel King's power peaked, and in a flash, only a blur could be seen. The Golden Wheel's turn rate was a bit slower, its power unable to keep up. The superconductor Radiant Wheels were already rapidly approaching, boom. As light spilled everywhere, the Golden Wheel mech exploded with light from its top, middle, and bottom. In 3 passes of the wheel, each pass had delivered over 10 attacks. 30 attacks only took a little more than a second. The Golden Wheel parried in a blur, barely managing to defend against the first wave of attacks, but in a deafening blast like thunder, the Radiant Wheel King disappeared again. His flanks, another attack to the top, middle, and bottom. An attack that left both attacker and defender with no space to breathe. Boom, the gold light and white light meshed. Against such a blistering attack, the Golden Wheel actually managed to defend. But, boom, everybody was watching open-mouthed. The cyclical attack rate of the Radiant Wheel King was only 1 round, but Vincent had already executed 3 rounds. Now it appeared behind the Golden Wheel mech, which had not finished turning around. This was the terrifying aspect of the Radiant Wheel King. Its super capabilities, when complemented with superhuman operation, made a super soldier. Boom, kaboom, with an explosion, the two mecha flew back at the same time. Blocked? He had even blocked the attack to his back? Vincent could hardly believe it. He had brought so much power in 3 tiers of 3 attacks. Even he himself could not have withstood it, but this person apparently did. Even against his unprotected back, he had been blocked. Wang Zheng's palms were sweating slightly as well. It had been too long since he had such a satisfying fight. This was completely different from fighting scrubs, where no skill was needed. This was different. It was a pity that his opponent's moves were still too routine. If he had varied a little, Wang Zheng would have suffered a lot more. The two mecha were not very far apart. Vincent's gaze turned chilling. In that instant, he suddenly remembered the general's warnings. What had made the general say that? His only interaction with Wang Zheng had been the revival match. If it was C rank, no, even a B rank could catch the general's attention. Could it have been an A rank? Vincent smiled then, excited. He actually shivered in anticipation. There was actually someone who had beaten the A rank difficulty mission? If that was the case, then he need not hold back. From 20 meters away, the Radiant Wheel King's superconductor wheels released a strong beam, charging. Lear's look turned flat. He was clear as to Radiant Wheel King's threat. At this moment, Wang Zheng had to do something, or he would die without question. This was something that all the pros present understood. The Radiant Wheel King was not counted among the top 10 mecha for nothing. Once the superconductor Radiant Wheels finished charging, it could release over 50 attacks in an instant. Energy shields could not withstand such an attack, and such an irregular, wide-area attack could not be dodged. Most terrifying of all, a fully charged superconductor Radiant Wheel was deadly, enough to cut through most normal mecha in an instant, including a full-capacity energy shield. It could be said that this was the dream of Manalasuo scientists, realized in the Radiant Wheel King. Once the superconductor Radiant Wheels were released, holding them back would be difficult. The mech would be immobilized for a few seconds. This was seen as inconsequential. All the enemies would have been dead by then. Almost everybody felt that this was the moment for Wang Zheng to seize the opportunity and sabotage the attack. But the Golden Wheel mech's golden wheels also started to turn. Damn, who do you think you are? A tin can like the Golden Wheel, hoping to compare against one of the top 10 mecha in the Milky Way? The difference was like heaven and earth. This was a sure kill, and nobody could save him. Pride sometimes led to one's downfall. The Golden Wheel's rotation finished just in time. Faster by a hair's breadth, the Radiant Wheel King was ready. Although rapid charging would compromise the mech's capabilities for a while after, the faster firing time could be the difference between life and death on the battlefield. The problem was, Wang Zheng's Golden Wheel had not made a move. F***ck, he was mad. The Radiant Wheel King moved, all weapons blazing, an inescapable trap. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the sky was filled with radiant wheels slicing towards Wang Zheng, thick and dense. Countless rotations that bewildered the eye. Activate your shields. Zhang Shan was scared out of his wits. He had not expected the Radiant Wheel King to be this strong. There was no way out by air or underground. Damn, in this instant he wished he could give his own displacement ability to Wang Zheng, but even that would not have been enough, unless one could completely vanish. Ping ping ping. The chaotic wheels accumulated on the Golden Wheel mech's torso. It was about to be blasted to smithereens. Vincent was already fully in the zone. The Radiant Wheels relentlessly continued their assault. Over 50 attacks was regarded as a pass, but he was Vincent, the youngest, strongest mechanist in Manalasuo's history. His wheel count was over 100. The Radiant Wheels filled the sky, sending light shooting everywhere. The Golden Wheel mech was completely obscured. Boom! The Golden Wheel mech was advancing. The Radiant Wheels had been perfectly blocked by the Golden Wheel, which was currently approaching with an unbelievable movement pattern. It was neither overlapping steps nor high-frequency steps, but some never-before-seen footwork which allowed the mech to maximize its defenses while keeping up its energy output. Most scary of all was Wang Zheng's sense of judgment, that every single wheel had been foiled. This was sick. He had not even activated his energy shield. It was not that Wang Zheng did not want to activate them, it was that he did not dare. In such a high-level fight, even being slightly slower meant certain death. The opponent's sudden attack had actually awakened the wild side of Vincent. Day after day, his training never flagged. While others were resting, he was still training. He was a genius, and had long achieved mastery. But he wanted more. He wanted to be a god. Kill. Another violent explosion. The Radiant Wheels flying out. The wheel count had already exceeded 100. This was a horrifying class of attack. But what was even more terrifying was Wang Zheng's defense. The Golden Wheel Mech's super spin was perhaps the only thing capable of fending off such a revolving attack. Fighting a spinning attack with another spin, it was an impenetrable defense that needed one to guard in 5 or more directions. 5 levels of control? Wang Zheng had displayed an inhuman defense, but it was useless. He was still subdued, and the distance between them shortened. The Radiant Wheel King's final killing blow appeared. 2 deadly superconductor radiant wheels had already been charged to the maximum. At this step, they were unstoppable. Vincent's eyes held a shred of pity. It was too bad that he had to die, but anybody who stood in Vincent's way, and Manalasuo's way, must die. Kill. Whoosh, 2 superconductor radiant wheels had already formed themselves into the Reaper's sickle, scything towards the Golden Wheel Mech. There was no way out. The Golden Wheel Mech strafed to the side, but it was useless. There were more than 10 radiant wheels left arching towards him. But in this instant, the golden wheels in Wang Zheng's hands finally moved. This was the first time that Golden Wheel Mech had attacked. Whoosh, whoosh, trying to take him down together. That was impossible. Vincent immediately activated his energy shields, guarding himself completely. His position was unassailable. But the Golden Wheel was actually attacking the Radiant Wheel. At the same time, more than 10 Radiant Wheels spun towards Wang Zheng. At this moment, a miracle happened. The Golden Wheel strafed sideways, and the Radiant Wheels all vanished. Boom boom, the Golden Wheel Mech and the Radiant Wheel Mech collided, and were sent flying. Both mecha gathered their energy at the same time. Vincent completed his preparations, and received the Radiant Wheels solidly, but was still inadvertently forced back a step by the powerful rush. At this time, the Golden Wheel had just dodged the Radiant Wheels and was off balance, but the Golden Wheels were returning. Would he be cut to pieces by his own wheels? Shing, shing, the Golden Wheels returned to hand with a light touch, stabilizing the core of the Golden Wheel Mech without the slightest pause. Whoosh, whoosh, the Golden Wheels were flying out. Everybody was ogling at the sight. Kong Zan's face was ashen. The nightmares were real. It really was happening. Even Vincent was numb with incomprehension. This was impossible. Nobody could do this. Boom, without time to evade, he had no choice but to block them with his arms. Boom. The energy shields declined to 20%, the golden wheels flying out tilted. Vincent was still a mechanist after all. He used the impact collision to move backward at speed, but the golden wheel was already charging at him. He attacked without even glancing at the 2 deadly, whistling golden wheels. Oh my god. This was over. The Golden Wheel Mech, in its testing phase, had incidents where pilots who lost focus had been severely injured by their own golden wheels. Golden Wheel made a strange stutter step, and the mech advanced slightly. The 2 golden wheels returned to his hand and, in the next instant, flew out again. Not only had there been no pause, but the revolution was no weaker. In fact, it seemed even stronger. Vincent could not believe his own eyes. What he was witnessing destroyed his own dignity and pride, because he had tried it before. This was something that nobody in the world could have accomplished. Not being pushed back, and with no pause in his own timing. This was impossible. Boom, energy shields exploded. The Radiant Wheel King was finished. Just at this moment, a distortion appeared in the space in front of Radiant Wheel King, and then 2 golden wheels were deflected back. Saved at the brink of death. Vincent's ability X. This was his last strength. The 2 golden wheels had been completely turned around, and flew viciously back at the Golden Wheel Mech. It was his last chance, but the Golden Wheel Mech had no intention of stopping, and again raised its 2 hands. Vincent gritted his teeth. Nobody in the world could receive a golden wheel like that. Ching, however, Wang Zheng's golden wheel had actually received the wheels and then thrown them back out again. Although the movements were slowed by a little, it didn't matter. With his mechanist insight, he could feel the pause. 0.1 seconds? The golden wheel, for the 3rd time, rushed at the radiant wheel with a whiz. At this moment, it was not just Vincent who had lost hope, but everybody watching as well. The Radiant Wheel King did not move and did not hide. Perhaps only death would free him at this point. His dreams had been completely destroyed. Boom, the golden wheel pierced through the Radiant Wheel King. ricocheting off the energy force field crazily, but obediently returning to Wang Zheng's hand. Crumble, neat cuts appeared on the burnished silver of the Radiant Wheel King, dissecting it cleanly into top, middle, and bottom. Deathly silence. All expressions were frozen. Was he even human? The golden wheels slowly turned, returning to the golden wheel mech's shoulders. Was this really the shame of Manalasuo? This was an invincible god? Bull closed his eyes. He knew things would turn out this way. Even if he wanted to selfishly hope for a miracle, he wished that he had forfeited this match as well, just like the Silver Snake Coalition did. Because to Vincent, this was an unmitigated disaster. It was very likely that the genius of Manalasuo would never recover from this. Vincent was carted off by the paramedics, his eyes closed. The wounds on his body were unimportant compared to the emotional scarring. His tears rolled down. No matter how many injuries he had sustained in training, no matter what happened, he had never once despaired. He had believed that effort alone would see him through to the top. That was until now, when his world had crumbled. The Atlanteans were silent. In this moment, even warriors from the mighty Atlantis could do nothing but silently convey their respect. It was such a shock when an unbeatable move was beaten. It was something that every warrior wanted to experience. The judges were silent. This needed no extraordinary brainpower to see that the Golden Wheel would be a celebrated mech from now on. How could the Radiant Wheel hell be evaded? This was a calculation that even computers would give up on. This was a farce. Damn, was this really the solar system team? All the Manalasuo members had been turned to stone. They had not comprehended their loss yet. The mighty Manalasuo Empire, fallen at the top 32. A shameful 0-4. It only began to dawn when the judge announced the result. The hall erupted into shattering cheers. This was a miracle. This was a battle god. The Karagal members exchanged glances. Suddenly, they saw the joy in their comrades' eyes. Because their luck was really too good. They had not needed to fight the solar system for top 16 placements and, after entering the top 16, they would not be matched up against the monster that was the solar system either. Damn, this was no dark horse. This was definitely one of the strongest teams of this IG. Sun God Achilles, King Lear Kronos, and of course the most terrifying of all, their leader. What kind of person was this? When Wang Zheng made his appearance, his teammates and the representative group had already swarmed up and threw him into the air. Meng Ao and the rest almost rushed out as well, but as generals they had to maintain some dignity, and could not be as boisterous as these youths. But their faces sported identical, childlike grins. The day they had waited for had finally come. Such a person. Someone who could bring Earth and the solar system to rise to power. No, more accurately, someone who could shake the entire Milky Way. Achilles was mild as always, while Lear still kept his haughty manner. To have one such genius was a heaven send, and now there were 3 in the solar system team. They would definitely take the place by storm. The various zones were more or less coming to conclusions as well. The entire IG, especially the ace teams, were shook when they heard of Manalasuo being swept 0-4. Everybody's first reaction was that the scores had been flipped. Manalasuo had been one of the invited teams for this competition. The IG's evaluation could not have been wrong. They were all-rounded, and had ability to back their reputation. Especially at this stage, in a best of 7, there was no such thing as coincidence anymore. So, Lar, S-Wise, Tim, So, Lar, S-Wise, Tim, Yi Zisu and Yan Xiaoshu were beside themselves with happiness as well. They had had full confidence in Wang Zheng, but had felt helplessness when they witnessed the horrifying attack of Radiant Wheel King. But Wang Zheng had actually dispelled the unbelievable attack, displaying the highest level of both attack and defense. The Atlanteans had made an exit, but as they left, it was clear that they had a different look in their eyes. This solar system team had the minimum ability to warrant a match with them, if they could make it that far. Max led his team over to offer their congratulations. They had actually triumphed over the great Manalasuo, an extraordinary outcome. What most shook Max was that after such a battle, Wang Zheng was not exhausted. Despite the sheen of sweat, his breathing seemed largely in control. Was this a robotic monster? Max and his team did not intrude for long, because they knew the solar system must be eagerly looking forward to their celebration. This was the furthest they had made it in the IG. But because of this battle, the solar system would not meet a similar reception as they had enjoyed in the past. They would be scouted and analyzed by their opponents with a magnifying glass, in order to identify their weaknesses. Nobody was flawless. No team was unbeatable. Not only the solar system team, but even Karagal was the same. Entering the top 16, they had lost all appetite for speculation. Only intelligence and strength would carry them forward. In his excitement, Yan Xiaoshu had forgotten about those friends far away on Earth. The competition had been too mind-blowing, causing Yan Xiaoshu to forget that he was tasked with conveying the news. At this moment, Yao Ailun and Old Deer were commentating a friendly match. While they were working, they were still cheering for the Solar System Federation team that was fighting on faraway Aslan. A million-strong crowd was a rare phenomenon in other CT zones. This was definitely a heated atmosphere. This also helped to improve Solin's position with Central Headquarters, especially when it was known that Skeleton was actually a student of Ares College. It was a legend brought to life, and now Wang Zheng was competing in the IG. Once word got out, they would no longer need to live in their dreams anymore. Only, when they were competing for the top 16, the solar system team had matched up against Manalasuo. Even those who barely knew what was going on could see that the game was up. As long as they did not lose too badly, it would be fine. In this regard, Earthlings had only too much experience. Not just losses, but they would often be destroyed and humiliated. Old Deer-eyed Yao Ailun, who shook his head slightly, he looked at his own Skylink, but there was no news. A strange feeling gripped them. If they had won, it was impossible that there would be no word, unless they had lost, and very badly. Old Deer's expression darkened briefly, but quickly returned to normal. He was a professional caster, and had to control his emotions. Till now we have no further information. Manalasuo is one of the strongest countries in the Milky Way. Their mech research is leading edge, and the best mech pilots on Manalasuo can receive the title of Mechnist. Regardless of the result, we'll count it a victory as long as our members can fight proudly on behalf of the solar system. At that moment, Ares College was fretting. What is that bastard Yan Xiaoshu playing at? Win or lose, he's got to tell us. Chen Shu, go bug him. What's the situation? There wouldn't have been a death, would there? Chen Shu was very anxious as well. At this moment, the Skylink rang. The news had arrived. Chen Shu was stunned. Those around him swarmed over. What expression was this? Had someone died? But everybody who saw the result was stunned too. Their initial reaction was, could this be a mistake? After a while, Yan Xiaoshu's silhouette appeared, with his hands raised in celebration. Just at this moment, a miracle has happened. The majestic solar system fought wonderfully. We swept the Manalasuo team 4-0. It was a pity that this paltry score was incapable of reflecting our true strength. This is truly a miracle. The whole place erupted. Very quickly, the whole school was afire with the news. The Solar System Federation team had swept the Manalasuo Empire 4-0, and entered the top 16. At first, everybody thought it was fake news, but they soon realized the truth of it. Solon went through the official channels for proof, but all he obtained was the score as well. But the CT official website had a new announcement. Congratulations to the Solar System Federation team, sweeping Manalasuo in a 4-0 and entering the IG top 16. Old Deer was still commentating. Yao Ailun had already leapt out of his chair. Old Deer was staring agape. Damn, brother, you're also half professional yourself, control yourself already. Old Deer, we swept Manalasuo 4-0, F***CK. As expected, what did you say, we swept Manalasuo? That's right, ha ha ha, ladies and gentlemen, the news has just arrived. The Solar System Federation team swept Manalasuo 4-0. Damn me, who would still dare to belittle us? In the fourth match, our captain, Wang Zheng, who is also our skeleton, completely destroyed the Manalasuo super genius, the youngest mechnist in history, Vincent. At that moment, the entire CT forum broadcast room, military forum broadcast, etc. all erupted. Damn, this was a dream. Even one's best daydreams could not compare. There wasn't even a need to mention YY1. Both sides in the friendly match had stopped. Then the strangest thing happened. Both mecha were hugging each other tightly in celebration. But who could blame them? We were members of the mighty Solar System Federation. Manalasuo's recess room was silent. The amazing Manalasuo Empire had actually been eliminated from the IG in such a painful fashion, and their champion had fought the equivalent of the Battle of Waterloo in his first time representing the country. To this stoic but enthusiastic youth, this was a devastating blow indeed. The door opened, and Lieutenant General Bowl entered. Bowl waved his hand for everyone else to leave, and the team members quietly filed out. They knew that the general wanted to talk to Vincent. Vincent was the most favored soldier by the military. His talent and effort, as well as his fanatical knowledge of mecha, were all key factors in greatness. Bowl saw these in him. Seeing Bowl, Vincent stood up. After simple treatment, his injuries were largely on the mend. General. Bowl smiled slightly. Sit. Looking at Vincent, Bowl was still quite satisfied. Collected yourself? Yes, sir. They are indeed very strong, but not invulnerable. Failure isn't the end of the world. It's good to suffer some setbacks when you're young. Look at the history of mankind. Only those who went through the worst difficulties truly achieved greatness. This is but a start. All of you are still young, and the important thing is to pick yourself up every time you fall, Bowl said. As Manalasuo's lieutenant general, he could afford to be less picky about things like failure and success. Even if he would suffer all kinds of questioning and criticism once they returned home. Life was just like that. General, since we have proven that the Golden Wheel mech can be used, rest assured that I will train in it the moment I return, Vincent said. Unquestionably, he was a professional. One battle with Wang Zheng had helped him to realize the power of Golden Wheel mech. Although the Radiant Wheel King was supposed to be the evolved form of the Golden Wheel mech, on second thought, it simply used some technological novelties to cover the weaknesses. The Golden Wheel's essential concept was the infinite attacks of the Golden Wheels. When it came down to it, Radiant Wheel King simply had a similar attack shape. Retrospectively, it was precisely because the attack method changed. The high-speed advance and superconductor radiant wheels were technological advancements. This had changed the concept of the mech completely. You could fool others, but not yourself. Bowl nodded. Your way of thinking reflects well upon you. I was not too sure at the start, but seeing you now, there's something that you are ready to see. Is it that he passed the A-rank test? Vincent asked. He had reverted to the calm Vincent, his thoughts clear. That he was able to put the whole thing behind him so quickly was because victory and defeat were secondary to him. The most important was the knowledge of mecha. Defeat was hard to swallow, but thinking of the Golden Wheel mech's terrifying power, a new door had opened where there was nothing but walls before. It was agony, yet also an eagerness to try it out. Bowl shook his head slightly. S rank? S rank? There's such a rank? It's the highest difficulty. The chances of it are 1 in 1,000, but he got it, and he passed it. Bowl opened the Skylink. Although it was classified, as long as he did not publicize it, they could afford to close an eye. Such a video before the battle would do no good. But now they had lost, and Manalasuo was about to head home as well. There was a need for Vincent to know his opponent's true strength, because this would be the strongest motivator for him. As the Skylink bloomed, Bowl knew that it was definitely not just him who had secretly procured the footage, just that everybody else had kept it low-key as well. Time passed. From the start to the very end, Vincent sat completely still. No matter how many times he watched it, the shock was still the same. He simply felt a tinge of pity that such a person was not from Manalasuo. Vincent's expression was honestly laid out, from shock, to surprise, to horror, and finally, peace. Understood, Bowl said. Vincent stood up, snapping into a sincere salute. Yes, sir. Bowl's expression was inscrutable. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. The Golden Wheel mech is really an unstoppable killing god, and perhaps our most successful mech to date, but we don't use it ourselves. Isn't that a pity? General, I swear that I will definitely train with the Golden Wheel mech, and also find a way to make it popular. Bowl smiled. Very well. Set your heart to it and learn as much as you can. This IG has been very interesting. But for the solar system, I'm afraid the next stage will be nigh impossible to pass. Vincent was taken aback for a moment. Such a team had the ability to put up a fight against anybody. How? Suddenly, Vincent knew who their next opponent was. It was a team that did not even leave you a window to bring your ability to bear, the Darkness Empire team. The IG Top 16 had now been decided. The strongest 16 teams in the Milky Way. They had been tested in all ways, and were undisputedly strong. Zone A Aslan Empire Team, Astina Federation Team. As one of the strongest countries among mankind, Aslan had always been the target to chase. Strong in all aspects, and being the host of this IG, they had home ground advantage. Furthermore, they had a genius that was said to come along only once every 50 years. And now there were two, on their home turf. Aslan had their eyes on the prize. Astina Federation Team, an old hand and strong team. This was a federation that loved competition. From life to military, they lived exciting lives, full of ups and downs. Their fluctuations were huge, but this year was a surge, and their members passionate. The Astina Federation's military power was regarded as mid-tier within the Milky Way, but they had brought talented and passionate geniuses this time, and were a peak team. Zone B Atlantis Team, Sirius Star Team. Atlantis went without saying. They had always been unbeatable. Any member in any other team could have easily become captain, while the Atlantean twin champions were even stronger. The only description for Atlantis was, always mimicked, never surpassed. Sirius Star Empire. A country with huge attack power and ambitions to match. Their strength was considerable, but they were limited in resources and population, and had until now been unable to reach the peak. But their attack power was nothing to sneeze at. The Sirius Star people's innate abilities were considerable, perhaps because they had taken in some of the local aborigines. When humans combined with other types, they mutated and created many new tributaries. The Sirius Star was one of them, and the Sirius Star's rest when we die battle attitude was unique. In their history of battles, they had never been taken captive. Zone C Ghana Star Team, Darkness Empire Team. Ghana Star, a planet that was a classic multi-tribe mix. Mankind, Naga, and Kakans all lived together, and it had resulted in a unique manner, because they had always been living in chaos and war. Their battle strength was amazing. Raising troops was secondary to training troops, and training troops was secondary to actual war. The Ghana Star's unique beast-type mecha was something that could never be copied. Darkness Empire Team. On their planet, they only had an hour of daylight in a 24-hour period, and the light was weak. But they were booming, a very unique planet. Logically, such a country was very suited for tourism, such as nightlife. But in reality, the empire possessed huge ambitions for invasion. Their culture believed that darkness symbolized eternity. The world belonged to darkness, and light was but a decoration. They had once hoped to take a place amongst the likes of Aslan and Arbiter, but had been foiled by Keelung. In the last few decades, their strength had surged, and were now unstoppable. In this team, Slauberg Banda was hailed as the Star of Darkness. In their national conversations, he was regarded as capable of leading the Darkness Empire towards glory. Zone D Solar System Federation Team, Karagal Star System Team. This was an outcome that nobody would have dreamed of before the competition. That these two teams had actually emerged from Zone D, and the Solar System team had actually beaten Manalasuo and was now regarded as a possible candidate to take the win. To take the win. A phrase that drew the eye, Zone E. Arbiter Empire Team, Maya Empire Team. The Arbiter Empire Team was one of the strongest. Olivius was also hailed as the strongest in this iteration. From their performance to date, Olivius was well favored to obtain the best captain title for this IG. As with Aslan, they too had their eyes on the championship. Maya Empire Team. One of the lost civilizations rediscovered in the Star Voyager era. Maya Empire was strong, but different from Atlantis. The Maya Empire had ambitious dreams for expansion, and were much stronger than humans. The only problem was, they had encountered the second secret era of human expansion, and met with an indomitable king. In the end, they were forced to submit. At that time, a human could not actually have hoped to compete with Maya Empire. Zone F Lea Sphinx Republic Team, Hail Cloud Alliance Team. The Lea Sphinx Republic was one of the permanent governing members of the Milky Way, a strong experienced country. Their foreign relations were cordial, and they held substantial influence in matters both military and economic. Their only fault was that they were a stickler for the rules, but it was precisely because of that Lea Sphinx Republic were prosperous, and frequently made it to the top 8. Hail Cloud Alliance Team. Hail Cloud Alliance's 3 planets had been covered in glacial ice for thousands of years. But what was marvelous was that this was extremely beneficial to human existence. The temperature below and above the ice layer was wonderfully suspended. Here, mankind had built a world made of ice that was unparalleled. It was a famous tourist hotspot, and the Hail Cloud beauties were also famous for their frosty beauty and equally warm passion. Out of their 12 members, they had 6 female fighters, the highest amount in IG. Zone G Gemini Star Team, Immortal Barbarian Star Team. The Gemini Star had very strong gravity. Because of that, their people had a shorter stature, but their constitution was much stronger than those of the Norton Star. This was assumed to be linked to the planet's vitality. They were also a frequent presence in the top 8, an undoubtedly strong force. The Immortal Barbarian Star was entering the top 16 for the first time as well. It was deemed as an upset that was neither groundbreaking nor expected. In the second round, they had acquitted themselves well. They had restrained the Spaceflight Star well. The Spaceflight Star had been unable to bring their telepathic abilities to bear. Who would have thought that the top 32 battles had no group battle? Zone H Maca Republic Team, Earthworm Federation Team. The Maca Republic was also one of the 10 permanent governing members. Their national strength had been on the decline in recent years, but a skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. They had still made their way into the top 16 without too much trouble. The Earthworm Federation Team was traditionally a strong team. On their mother planet, Earthworm Star, they had the most fantastic tunnel architecture, a majestic view that stretched from the surface to the mountains. The Earthworm people were also mixed, but not the caste system found on the Ghana Star. Here they lived equitably, a model example of peaceful coexistence between mankind and other alien races. As the top 16 matchups were released, IG also entered a 3-day rest period. They said it was rest, but it seemed likely that the IG central headquarters were racking their brains to set these geniuses some tough challenges. The sentiment they announced was that too easy a process would not be fulfilling for some, although it was arduous and tricky to change the format now. But Aslan was willing to facilitate this. After all, one-on-one fights were not representative of a fighter's best. In order to keep them occupied, the top 16 matchups had been released, allowing the teams to prepare. Some were celebrating, while others were brooding. Ghana Star Team vs Karagal Republic Team, Gemini Star Team vs Sirius Star Team. Maya Empire Team vs Lea Sphinx Team, Aslan Empire Team vs Immortal Barbarian Star Team. Solar System Federation Team vs Darkness Empire Team. Arbiter Empire Team vs Maca Republic Team, Hail Cloud Alliance Team vs Astina Federation Team. Atlantis Team vs Earthworm Federation Team. Clearly, the Immortal Barbarian Star, which had fought hard for their top 16 spot, were unlucky to have met Aslan, where a positive outcome was impossible. Earthworm Federation Team had also received the short end of the stick, meeting the Atlantis team that nobody wanted to match up against. This spelled their doom. Although the Earthworm Federation had displayed superb battle power and unique abilities against Atlantis, they knew their game was up. Nobody thought an upset was possible against the likes of Atlantis. Because the other teams each had their specialties, the odds were about 40 to 60 or 30 to 70. The outcome was still in the air. These 3 days would not be peaceful. Once the opponents had been announced, the team members had been galvanized into researching their opponents. Regardless, everybody wanted to reach the top 8. Top 8 had a completely different meaning. Entering the glorious top 8 meant that their name would be remembered. They had already made it to the top 16, and nobody was willing to give up here. Entering the top 16 battle, the Super Dark Horse Solar System team had surged out of nowhere, turning from a dark horse to a dashing golden stallion. They had an aura of reaching for the skies. Although their reserve capabilities were insufficient, their main force had already reached the top in the Milky Way. Especially Wang Zheng, who was widely researched by all the teams who might face him. The rest had been mostly researched before the start of IG, and all that could be known was known. The rest would have to be discovered on the battlefield. But this Wang Zheng was different. Before the competition, nobody had known his strength, but now nobody could slight him. Anyone who could take down the likes of Vincent with the mecha equivalent of a tricycle deserved respect. Footages were reviewed, again and again. The Darkness Empire team was using their recess room as their war room. All the members were watching the Solar System Federation team sweeping Manalasuo. Nobody needed to process this as urgently as they did. As their next opponent, after watching the battle, everybody was silent. An encounter was more telling than hearsay. Before this, they had heard all sorts of rumors about dark horses, but nobody had an inkling of what they were actually up against. But after watching this competition, the pressure in the room really began to mount. Achilles, from the moon, Academy X member, and the consistent top scorer. As everybody saw, this person likes a controlled win. Solid foundations, a preference for guns. Ability X not known, but probably something to do with strength exertion. The intelligence analyst from the Darkness Empire retrieved an extremely long form, which recorded numerous behavioral tics of Achilles, as well as his unique attack patterns, such as if he preferred the left or right, or dipped his shoulder. These small movements could very well distinguish victory from defeat. Next, Lear, also a student of Academy X and Earthling, and a classic Earthling to boot, sees himself as above everybody, including their leader. The solar system's internal conflicts have mostly stemmed from this person. He has been slighted in the past by Achilles, and a long-time second place in the Academy. His ability X is an energy type, but details are unknown. He comes from an ancient, prestigious family. His conceit might be exploitable to our benefit. The Darkness Empire's analysis was acute. They had viewed the records with a practical eye, and begun an analysis one by one. From each person's past records to their current competition performance, and even some internal matters had been researched. Know yourself, and know thy enemy. The Darkness Empire really believed in this maxim. Besides these two, Lai Xin and Luo Fei's performance was very unique, and belonged to the second tier in the solar system. Lai Xin's unique fighting style was also famous in the Milky Way. After all, the Lai family also had an illustrious history. Luo Fei seemed like the dual personality type. But these two, compared to the first tier, still had a clear difference in ability, and the solar system as a whole still had a few clear weaknesses. Besides these few, the rest had been mere spectators in the fight for top 8, and at most used as cannon fodder. This needed attention as well. Of course, the battle strategy was decided by the captain. Undoubtedly, Slauberg Bondha was a genius in this aspect. The previous fight would have been a bitter fight, but with his fight setting the morale, he had smoothed their path to victory considerably. Lastly, Wang Zheng, the solar system team captain. At the mention of Wang Zheng, Bo Ning paused. Everyone's expressions changed. This person came out of nowhere in the Solar System Federation, snatching the attention of rival from both Achilles and Lear. Before the competition, his performance was average, but recently he has been spectacular. The battle analyst's conclusion is that he is their best bet. As he spoke, the recess room's huge screen played the battle footage. This was the first time that Wang Zheng had used Hercules mecha. This was Wang Zheng's battle in the first round. He gives a feeling of someone having strong abilities posing as a miracle soldier. But after multiple detailed analyses, we have discovered that his mastery of mecha is sublime. To achieve this, the pressure that one's fingers have to bear are unimaginable, reaching more than 50 G-force. The screen flashed. The Radiant Wheel King versus Golden Wheel Mecha. Everybody is preoccupied with why the Golden Wheel did not retreat, but in my opinion, this is but a trivial question. After all, it is the nature of the mecha's capabilities. Therefore, to beat him, what you must consider is not why he can do what he does, but what he can do. Notice his positioning. He gives the impression of flowing seamlessly, with no pauses. Again, this shows his mastery and control over strength. Although he did not use ability X, our conjecture is that he specializes in a few auxiliary control type energy ability X. Of course, this is just speculation. We still have insufficient information on this person. Bo Ning had spared no effort in analyzing their information, and the Darkness Empire members were also listening attentively. The conference lasted a full 3 hours, and no one called for a break, or lost focus. Some aspects had even been revisited for more discussion. The Darkness Empire's rise had not simply been a matter of strength, but also of attitude. Looking at them, one did not see the reckless strength of youth, but a mature, enduring strength. This was the most serious lesson of the Darkness Empire, who could have originally created greatness, but had stumbled over some small fry and forced to shoulder centuries of shame. Therefore, the Darkness Empire detested underestimating the enemy and slip-ups. In the Empire, any slip-ups were severely punished. This was the lesson of their history. Slauberg stood up and mildly said, "All right, now everyone has a rough sense of things. If we go up against them head-on, our chances of victory are 50-50, but what I want is 100-0. Wang Zheng is definitely very strong, but we have no need to take him head-on. Dropping his match, the others will definitely lose. Captain, but even Wang Zheng would be at his wit's end against your ability. Why not finish him, and bring glory to the nation?" "Yes, Captain, this kind of guy can't hold a candle to your ability. If you take the field, I'll bet that he'll be finished." The Darkness Empire members were full of confidence, because no matter how strong you were, you would be reduced in the face of the mighty Slauberg Banda. Slauberg mulled over it. "We'll see how it goes." The Darkness Empire members started, then their sober expressions lit up with happiness. They evidently knew Slauberg's meaning. Only Bo Ning spoke up. "Captain Slauberg, isn't it too early to show our hand now? To enter the top 8, all cards must be put on the table. The solar system is no easy opponent. Besides, it is time for us to establish our rightful place." Slauberg's ambition, after finishing off his old rival, was rearing its head. He was also full of pent-up energy he needed to vent. The solar system was but a small pebble by the side of his path, and no obstacle. But, by crushing this pebble to dust, he could intimidate the huge tiger that was barring his path, and that was a separate matter. He believed that his own ability was invincible, and nobody in this world had a more fearsome power. The Darkness Empire team's mood had changed. It was time for them to shock the world. Aslan Team Recess Room, similarly, their intelligence analysts were detailing the solar system. "Is his turn rate really slow? My sense is that he's controlling the rhythm. If he had followed the Radiant Wheel King's movement and turned, he would have fallen into Vincent's battle rhythm. This little bit of difference could have brought about a completely different result." At the same time, although he did not turn fully, but the Golden Wheel mech's defense did not suffer because of it. Take note of this detail. The Golden Wheel's hands and the Golden Wheel's preemptive heat. A pity that Vincent's attacks were too predictable. Although practiced attacks have more offensive power, but they are also easily blocked. "Kiki, these are all unimportant. Oz, what do you think the answer is to him not retreating?" Aurora asked. Towards a weaker galactic ally, Aslan was quite curious as well. Before the competition, the solar system had actually come to greet them, saying something about taking care of them if the opportunity arose. Within Aslan, they had invited some taunts. After so many years, the Solar System Federation still had the same bad habits. Take care, how would one do so? The weak would always remain weak. But the way that things had turned out, the solar system seemed to be just obligatorily offering greetings. Oz lazily raised 2 fingers. Aurora smiled, and the rest pricked up their ears. In truth, even the Aslan people had been shocked by this move. Such a spectacular match was perhaps in part due to the opponent's weaknesses. Thrashing noobs normally made for more entertainment, but Vincent was no noob. Movement and finger control. Watch the details. Every time the wheels close, his position, do you see that? This directional adjustment prepares him to receive the wheels. It means that he is utilizing the system of the Golden Wheel mech to judge, and then the refiring depends on the agility of his hands. Of course, by redirecting the momentum, the recoil of the Golden Wheels is not as strong. Oz smiled. This guy is a genius, and really does have something about him. I hope to fight him. But Aurora shook his head. Not exactly, and I don't blame you. You haven't piloted the Golden Wheel before. I have. Simply depending on the system judgment would not have made it in time. Although Vincent is a little frail, but his ability is still not bad, especially in his attack rate and speed. You mean, he judges by eye, no, by feel? Oz was a little shocked. Aurora nodded. If I'm not wrong, this guy is difficult to handle. A pity they are against the Darkness Empire. Against another opponent, they would stand a good chance of entering the top 8. As for Immortal Barbarian Star, they could not be counted as opponents. They were not even a good warm-up. The solar system's analysis of the Darkness Empire was similarly ongoing. The solar system team mood was filled with confidence. The Oslan federal resident, Major Zhu Zilling, was smiling slightly as well. The Solar System Federation could take down Manalasuo. Such a phrase, if said a day ago, would have seen the speaker thrashed and laughed at. But now, it was a reality. Furthermore, after taking down a mountain like Manalasuo, the upcoming Darkness Empire team did not give them a feeling that it would be very difficult. Regarding intelligence on the Darkness Empire, what we have collected is quite scant. The main points are their fights in IG. Before that they had been quite low profile. But in the showdown with the Immortal Fairy Star team, they showed quite a lot of their hand. The one who needs special attention is their leader Slauberg Bondha. He has the darkness screen ability, which is rumored to rob one of their sight and sink the opponent into darkness. Nobody had expected the solar system to win, and in such a decisive fashion. Only, such last-minute research on their opponent was clearly insufficient time to gather proper intelligence. The Darkness Empire also trained their troops strictly. Furthermore, they had a more religious color compared to Arbiter. They worshipped the goddess of darkness, and believed that the night was eternal. Their team as a whole was very strong, from their reserve strength to individual ability. They were arguably no weaker than Manalasuo, and the key was their leader. This darkness screen ability was unbeatable. How could one fight without being able to see? But even if it was her, she had no answers. There was virtually no way to defend against the opponent's ability X. After Zhu Zilling had finished speaking, Meng Ao looked at them. Wang Zheng, Lear, Achilles, you all speak your minds. If you have any thoughts, or any needs, speak freely. Lear's expression was still indifferent. If we meet him, just leave it to me. Meng Ao looked at Wang Zheng. He smiled. I would like to test his darkness screen. Achilles also smiled and shrugged. He did not care one way or the other. The Oslan military was rushing some secret preparation. The top 8 competitors arrived on schedule, at the base's main training ground. All 16 participating teams had assembled. This time, they would be closely examined in front of all their potential opponents. Only those who were truly strong could endure until the end. The most forward step of the amphitheater hall was reserved for the competitors. The middle was for the various representative groups, while the furthest were for the Milky Way personnel. Top 8 battles signaled IG's move into a crucial phase. There would be 2 battles a day. The first match was between the Ghana Star team against the Karagel Republic team. Half of the Ghana Star representative group were aliens, exotic and filled with arrogance. The Ghana Star team was raring to go. For the Karagel Republic team to have come this far was no easy task. The Ghana Star was not especially strong, and they had about 40% chance of winning. This was already lucky in the draw. Max hoped to lead his brothers into the top 8 and make history for the Karagel Republic, bringing glory to the closely knitted nation. Many of the strong teams were in the same room for the first time. Atlantis team, Arbiter team, Oslan team. The Atlantis team still drew the most attention. Their appearance had immediately drawn the eye of all the teams. No matter how strong Atlantis was, they could not be regarded as the highest standard of mankind, because they were not human. Whoever managed to defeat Atlantis would win that title instead. In this iteration, Arbiter, Oslan, and the rest had expressly come for this purpose. They wanted to fight the Atlantis team fair and square. Among all these stars, the Solar System Federation team, led by Wang Zheng, was not so remarkable anymore. The philosophy of the strong was very simple. All those who lost were weak. Manalasuo was therefore weak, and winning Manalasuo was now no big deal. In this venue, more than half of the people thought they were the best. The 2 teams, as the main characters of the day, stood at the forefront, ready to prepare for battle. Both leaders, Max of Karagel and Adams of Ghana, stepped up. Adams had been chosen for captain because of his human status. After all, this was mankind's IG. Both sides drew lots. Ghana would start first. Adams pointed at Graculus. This was the Ghanaians' point fighter. A ferocious Khakan, also called the Rock People. Their ferocity was not just a pretense. Karagal sent out their point, Rosso. Rosso stepped forward, placing his right hand on his breast. God provides life. God provides food. God provides strength in battle. For glory. For glory, all those of the Karagal Republic present stood at attention. This seemingly weak nation had wrought a miracle, simply on the basis of unity. Perhaps they were not that talented, but they had amply displayed the advantage of mankind. Graculus could not be bothered to wait for his opponent, or consider any battle strategy. He directly selected his mech, Steel Desolate Beast. This was the Ghana Star's unique mech, built especially for Calkins. It was not too suited for human usage, whereas Calkins could unleash the maximum potential of this mech. The main practice ground where the top 8 contests took place was outdoors, to give the pilots ample room to maneuver. Of course, the corresponding increase in destructive power had also been considered. Rosso chose Karagal's very famous Buddha series, Buddha General IV. This was a humanoid-type fighter mech. A standard beam saber, decent capabilities, and suited for both long-range and close-range fighting. The 2 selected mecha were readily delivered. The Steel Desolate Beast was a shade larger. The Buddha General IV was a sword and shield mech, a titanium shield complementing the beam saber. It would block the Steel Desolate Beast's attack and search for its own opportunity. The half-beast Steel Desolate Beast was evidently intimidating. The Calkins had always reckoned that humans ruled the Milky Way not because they were particularly strong, but because there were so damned many of them. They reproduced faster than worms, and they did not understand why they reproduced and matured so quickly. On the Ghana Star, Calkins only numbered a little more than 10,000, and only warriors had the right to give birth. With the starting gun booming, the battle started. Graculus stared at his opponent, who had turned his full attention to defense, like a dog. He revealed huge teeth the size of boulders, and leapt at the biggest weakness, rumble. The Steel Desolate Beast rushed towards the opponent in large bounds. In truth, the Steel Desolate Beast's speed and agility were very average, but the Calkins had overpowering aura about them. Rosso's laser gun began firing. He did not want his opponent to get close at all. The laser hit the Steel Desolate Beast's energy shield, creating ripples. The Steel Desolate Beast was apparently not suited to evasion, or Graculus was not even bothering to dodge. Mankind was small and wretched, and never dared to face them head-on. The majestic and brave Calkins did not care about such ant bites. The 2 mecha were just 20 meters apart. Because the Steel Desolate Beast had made little attempt to evade, the energy shield had already taken severe damage. Even if the shield was thicker, this was simply wasting it. Rosso loved such straightforward enemies. Come on, I'll definitely beat you into a pulp. Boom, another shot, and still the Steel Desolate Beast did not dodge. Were Ghanaians all so silly? Then, suddenly, the Steel Desolate Beast let loose a bellow. The huge mech shot forward like a cannonball. Rosso watched with eyes wide as the huge mech charged at an incomprehensible speed. He raised his own shield instinctively. But at this moment he felt so frail. Boom, the earth shook and Rosso felt like he had been hit by a cannon. Although his energy shields were up, he felt like his insides had been scrambled. Just one blow, and his energy shields had already depleted to 30%. He bit his tongue forcefully to clear his head, but the Steel Desolate Beast had already leapt into the air, grabbing the Buddha General IV in midair, and slamming it towards the ground. Boom, kaboom, a huge crater appeared on the surface, and debris rained down. The taunts of the Calkins could be heard. How dare such a weakling join IG? Go home and suckle at your mother's breast, little pup. Round 1, Ghana win. The paramedics hurried on site, but were shocked at what they saw. The Buddha mech had already been smashed to smithereens, and Rosso was dead. There was nothing left to save. The Steel Desolate Beast suddenly moved towards the paramedics, who scattered, frightened. From the cockpit, hearty Calkin laughter could be heard. The Ghana team's aliens laughed as well. Humans were so cowardly. The IG up till now had more injuries than deaths. This was clearly purposeful killing. He had the situation under his control, but still chose to deliver the killing blow. Adams smiled unconcernedly. Although he was a human, he had been born on Ghana, a cannibalistic place. When you were hungry, you were open to trying other foods as well. Life and death was a natural thing after all, and if these little guys came without such psychological preparation, then it was on them. Kiki, Karagal captain, don't get mad now. Anger interferes with clear judgment, Adams said. Max forced himself to stay calm. Scott, the second match is yours. Yes, Captain. Scott stood up, his eyes filled with fury. He would avenge his brother. Stay calm. Do not fall for your opponent's traps. Understood. Adams smirked, gesturing towards Leandre, who had been hopping up and down from before. The Naga could never sit still. His huge tail was twitching non-stop. He spat towards Scott, who had already entered the field. Killing interesting prey was the privilege and honor of warriors. Leandre completely disdained his opponent. The majority of aliens did not care as much as humans. They would rather place their trust in raw power. This was why they saw their opponents as lambs for the slaughter. Leandre chose the Naga's specialized scorpion mech, a beast-type mech, perhaps because it was an arachnid mech. The shape was unusual. It possessed great mobility, and was adaptable to all sorts of environments. 2 specialized pincers that could rip flesh, and also laser guns. The tail was shaped like a whip, capable of both attacking and defending. But only the Nagas could use it, because of their powerful tails. The match had only gone on for a few minutes, but it was already a one-sided affair. Leandre was a monster toying with its prey, sweeping it down with each pincer. The tail was even more deadly, and Scott could not defend against it. He was beaten down again and again, and all he could hear was the strange yelps that his opponent was producing. The furious Scott could not hold his anger. Faced with his opponent's insults, he rushed forward angrily, but just as he was halfway through, his chest was completely pierced. The scorpion mech's tail was completely made of titanium, and directly pierced the cockpit, flinging it away like trash. Only the strange yelps of Leandre could be heard on the field. The crowd was silent. The Karagal team was shaking. In a close fight, deaths were sometimes the only resolution, but this was clearly willful. But they could do nothing about it. This was why entering the top 16 was not always seen as a good thing, and being eliminated was not necessarily bad. One might just lose their life. Even the Arbitans could not bear to watch further. They better hope they don't meet me, or I'll make them wish they were never born, Olivia spat. The Arbitans were never concerned with whether weaklings lived or died, but they hated those who dared to show off in front of them. Didn't they know that showing off was the exclusive domain of the Arbitans? Consumed by their anger, their morale was shattered. The Ghanaians were definitely strong, not just physically, but also in the effectiveness of their mecha. Karagal was a team. Their will was strong, and their skills were well-rounded. But this was the top 8 qualifiers, and being all-rounded alone was insufficient. Looks like Max's luck has finally run out. Achilles let out a long breath. Their battle strategy is all wrong. It's too conservative. Wang Jung agreed. The road to victory was a narrow path. Against such violent types, the constitution and skills of the Karagal people could not hope to defend themselves. Their best hope was to meet their violence head-on. Trash. Lear huffed. They were not sure if he was referring to the Karagal people or the Ghanaians, but the Ghanaians had successfully enraged the humans. Mercy was something that warriors would never need. Max took the field for the 3rd round. As the strongest in the Karagal Republic, Max had indeed wrought a miracle, bringing his team to the top 16. But in just 2 rounds, the team had lost 2 treasured members. The Karagal Republic's talents were not as proliferous as the ones from other countries. They had nurtured theirs for many years to produce the current team. They ate together, trained together, and fought together. Even if they were not brothers by blood, they felt as close as kin. That had brought them to where they were today, but the laughter felt like it had died with the yesterdays, and everything was quickly evaporating. This grudge had to be paid back, but Adams refused to give Max this chance. He did not go himself. The Ghanaians were unquestionably savage, but he was a human of Ghana. Humans who had been raised and survived in such an unforgiving environment were the most cunning. He had human intellect without the rashness and weakness that accompanied them. That was why he could become the captain of Ghana. Giving face. What a joke. That had no meaning. Max had been assigned a dud. He beat a reserve from the opponents. In hindsight, He should have held himself back, but the deaths of Rosso and Scott had made him lose his cool. Perhaps because of Max's lapse, or the Ghanaians' overwhelming strength, the subsequent 2 matches were easily taken by the Ghanaians. The only cause for celebration was that the Karagal members only sustained grievous wounds but were alive. Adams was clearly starting to stay his hand. They did not kill them because it was simply not time. They had already won this, and there was no need to waste more effort playing with their emotions. The Karagal team, which had been lucky up till now, had lost 1-4, and lost 2 of their talented fighters. This was an unbearable loss for the Karagal Republic. Only, setbacks were inevitable in the growing process. Avoiding battle was not their way. Their previous victories had caused the Karagal team to be mentally unprepared. They had forgotten the cruel side of the IG. To the Ghana Star team, this was just an insignificant win, and not worth celebrating. Ghana Star was the first to enter the top 8. But what they did not notice was, like Aslan and Arbiter, the watchful eyes of the Solar System Federation team. The morning fight was over. The Karagal Republic and Ghana Star relationship was over as well. After the afternoon break, the afternoon match started. Gemini team against Sirius Star team. It was thought that Max and his team would leave. After all, nothing but pain remained for them. But besides the injured, the Karagal members were all present. The pain in their eyes had not subsided, but they had to face it. Only by confronting their failure and suffering could they eventually triumph. This was the foundation which had helped the Karagal Republic rise from a weak country to their modest status today. They had more endurance than anybody else. At times, Wang Jung felt like he was both participant and bystander. He had experienced everything that others had been through before, and then some. This had caused him to become a little bipolar from a young age, but curiously not schizophrenic. Often, he had felt that he had this tendency, but this was, in fact, not the case. Ever since they had entered the second phase, he had become calm. His daily training had not been put to waste, but had become a habit. Not only him, but Lear and the rest as well. This IG had been undoubtedly beneficial to them. They had grown tremendously. Many times, emotional surges were needed. Anger, longing, desire, ambition, the stronger the better. To Max, although this defeat had been cruel, it might be a blessing in disguise. Perhaps one day, this experience would be the key to his eventual greatness. All those present were simply too young. Where there was life, there was hope, and at least he still lived. Wang Jung felt somebody looking at him. As he turned around, he saw the Atlantean prince regarding him like a curious child. Wang Jung smiled slightly, and the prince also smiled dazzlingly. Wang Jung did not have much of an opinion on Atlantis. He only knew that they were highly mysterious. He was curious about their king of Mirage Mech. Such a hallucination wonderfully brought together man, machine, and ability. Although in battle power they seemed evenly matched, in truth mankind had a long way to go, and in that regard Aslan led the way. Gemini team versus Sirius Star team. On one side, their statures were indeed a little short. The Gemini team, due to higher gravity and other reasons, had evolved drastically over the centuries. Some jokingly called them the aliens among humans. On average, they were about 150 centimeters, and 160 centimeters was tall. But the Gemini people had a dense bone structure capable of exerting prodigious strength. They were terrifying, and were considered the evolved form of people from the Northern Star. That was why the Northern Star people were suited to be heavy mech troopers, and the Gemini people were suited to be heavy mech generals. The Sirius Star was also noble and dignified. Their self-declared wolf blood made them incredibly formidable. The Sirius Star was also one of those countries that nobody dared to mess with. They had a curious battle quality to them. It was evident that they did not have the madness of slaves. In this battle, neither was prepared to give an inch. It would be a clash of their wills, to see who could endure until the end. The Gemini team's leader Ao Ziwei, a girl, that was without question. She was also the tallest in the team at 160 centimeters, according to official data. Although the girls of Gemini were of a short stature, they were shapely and elegant, unlike the barbaric men. On Gemini, gender was irrelevant in both life and battle. Strength was the language spoken. The Gemini people were not cunning people, but direct and straightforward. Sirius Star Captain, Dragon Wolf, Wolfow. In his veins ran the blood of the Sirius star family, and he was the first heir of the Sirius star family. Indigenous wolf people were not ugly, unlike the strange Cockins. They were exotic, handsome, fierce. Under numerous unions, they now possessed both the intellect of mankind and their own brute strength, to create the powerful Sirius star people of today. Wolfow was the perfect example. In this IG, their target was top 4. In the first round, they had set a new record in the first fight, both sides point fighters dueling for over an hour. The endurance of Gemini and the persistence of the Sirius star people were famous in the Milky Way. Sparks always flew when the two teams met, and they fought to the death. In a close fight at such a high level, they had fought for a full 1 hour 16 minutes before it was concluded. Any other planet's fighter would have long been exhausted. Till the end, both had maintained a relatively high standard. In the end, the Gemini fighter had taken the first battle. The Gemini people were like rocks, solid. No matter what kind of taunts or insults flew their way, they were comfortable in their own rhythm. A solid defense and subduing attacks that were not unexpected. On the other hand, the Sirius star people were all kinds of savage, fighting with every trick in their book. But the Gemini team would give them no such opportunity to play their dirty tricks. The first fight determined the pace of the entire battle. The Gemini team was leading 3-0, and every fight was over an hour long. The general feeling was that the Sirius star team had not been beaten, they had been slowly squeezed to death. No matter what uncanny moves they threw, they were helpless in the face of the unshakable Gemini people. Once they fell into the stable rhythm controlled by the Gemini people, they would definitely lose. In the Gemini people's words, battling was an exchange, a game that the Gemini people would always win. The Gemini people loved to use battles to add cheer to their festivals, of which they had many. Virtually every week was filled with celebration, and every month they had a large-scale one. It was why Gemini was called the Happy Planet. The most important fight was still between Ao Ziwei and Wolfow. The Pearl of Gemini, Ao Ziwei, and the greedy wolf Wolfow would meet in what was possibly the final battle. Ao Ziwei was not ugly, although she was no extraordinary beauty, but on Gemini, she was a goddess, and many in the younger generation secretly held love for her in their hearts. The moniker of Greedy Wolf was not derogatory, but rather an honorific. The wolf was greedy by nature, and a name like Sirius was not something that Wolfow was ready to take up yet. On Sirius Star, any name that related to the wolf was serious business. Gemini had already forced the Sirius Star to the brink of defeat. Ao Ziwei could actually drop this match and then secure an easy win, but she chose not to. Ao Ziwei chose to fight head-on. In truth, those that wanted to rule should not shirk battles, but such a view was double-edged. In the end, the winner's view was always right. Ao Ziwei, Victory Goddess. A high-class mech from Gemini, balanced and sturdy, equipped with beam saber and laser guns. To date it was the Gemini Special Ops mech. Wolfow. Sirius V. This was the most famous beast-type mech on the Sirius Star. As the descendant of the wolf god, Wolfow naturally brought out the best of the mech. To him, there was no backing down now. This was already not a matter of losing, but concerned the dignity of Sirius Star. This round must break the rut that they were in. He was grateful to Ao Ziwei for granting him this chance. The strong teams were finally beginning to sit up and pay attention. Although the previous battles were not bad, they were not enough to entertain those like Oz and Olivius, who already knew the skill levels at a glance. But this battle perked the audience up. Both Ao Ziwei and Wolfow were experts of the younger generation. Both mecha appeared on the practice field. Suffering consecutive losses had brought Wolfow to the edge of losing control, and he was at his most dangerous. As the starting gun rang out, the Sirius V shot out like an arrow from a bow. Regarding the Sirius mech, it was commonly seen in various countries, but few could compare to the Sirius Star's proficiency. They understood it in their bones. With a wolf howl, the entire mech turned into a curious red color, as if it were on fire. Is this the Sirius bloodline in the Sirius mech's synergy? Should be. My first time seeing it too. It doesn't look like much though. The Sirius mech's G material was about 3 times the average mech's. Only those of the Sirius bloodline could unlock the true power of this mech. Ao Ziwei's laser shot out, firing shot after shot towards the Sirius V. The opponent's attack was too direct, after all, but what happened next left everybody shocked. Wolfow did not activate his shields, but the lasers evaporated like steam. Energy attack ineffective? Or was it long-range attacks that were ineffective? The red light that had accompanied Wolfow's howl had actually blocked the laser. In an instant, the Sirius V appeared in front of Ao Ziwei, a frenzied wolf paw clawing out. Whoosh! Ao Ziwei's victory goddess leapt back like lightning. 3 deep gouges appeared on the ground. He had clearly been over a meter away. Every time Wolfow howled, the red light on the mech's body would glow anew. At this time Wolfow was like Sirius incarnate, an invincible god. Wolfow had been thoroughly agitated. Their Sirius clan was invincible, their road to victory unstoppable. Once he ripped Ao Ziwei to shreds, his pack juniors could definitely secure the win. Boom! Ao Ziwei's beam saber had finally sliced out, colliding with Wolfow for the first time. In an instant, Wolfow unleashed a blistering attack. Speed, strength, and agility were the strong points of Sirius people, and an amazing constitution. Their bloodline's ability X was unique, enabling them to fend off energy wounds for short periods of time, and at the same time increase their own strength, speed, and agility to overcome any opponent. The most fundamental condition was to be savage, and in an instant he had elevated by 3 levels. Ao Ziwei was indeed the model example of a Gemini. Stable fighting was their strong point, but now even she could not follow the pace. Boom! Ao Ziwei was thrown back a few meters, but the valiant female fighter did not counter with strength, but absorbed the blow. With another howl, Wolfow's Sirius V leapt forward without pause. Ao Ziwei did not retreat, her beam saber flashing out. Boom! The Sirius V's claw had already snagged the beam saber. Not only had he blocked it, but Wolfow was planning to finish his opponent in one move. He had completely seen through his opponent's attack. His opponent could not keep up with his speed, but the Sirius V mech was inexplicably thrown backwards. Boom boom boom. Every time Ao Ziwei's victory goddess slashed the beam saber at the Sirius V blocked it, and yet failed to block it. The mech was beaten backwards methodically, and this made the pilot, Wolfow, unbelievably frustrated. Why could he not block it? What ability X was this? Boom 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 boom. Ao Ziwei's every attack was measured, controlled, and getting faster and more violent. Most crucially, each blow could be blocked, but the mech still suffered a huge hit. Boom! The Sirius V was sent flying. Mid-air, Wolfow howled. He was covered in blood, and had been driven into a frenzy. Vampiric wolf spirit. Kaboom! The Sirius V exploded in mid-air. Everyone's jaw dropped. Even the strongest fighters took notice. This ability X had never been seen before, but it made a simple beam saber turn into an unbeatable heavenly sword. Only now did they realize that the victory goddess beam saber had become twice as long, and was blindingly bright. All the Gemini team members had raised their arms, cheering on their noble victory goddess. Although they were not physically big, their lung power was superb. Energy dissipation. Doesn't seem like it. It's amplified, but not exactly that either. The Sirius mech looks like it's been shaken thoroughly. Blocked, but not blocked, and unavoidable. This attack looks like a BUG-1. No wonder a woman could become the Gemini IG captain. The Sirius team can lose with no regrets. I think this tyrant woman has yet to unleash fully the stability of the Gemini, complemented with such an ability. Damn. Haha, it's possible that some are actually willing to accept a hard bone like this. The Gemini team swept the Sirius Star team in a 4-0. It was deemed an upset that was neither unbelievable nor expected. Everybody had judged this to be the closest fight. Ao Ziwei walked out to a reception of her teammates' cheers. Clearly she had fought this battle well prepared, perhaps using just half her strength. The first day of top 8 battles was now over, but Ao Ziwei made a bizarre move. She pointed at somebody specific within the Solar System Federation, and made a gesture unique to the Gemini team. Waiting for you on the battlefield. On the first day of battle, the victory goddess of Gemini, Ao Ziwei, together with the Ghana Star's Triple Madness, entered the field of vision of the crowd. Especially for Ao Ziwei, without a doubt, she was going to become the person whom Gemini would focus on grooming. At the same time, She would also be receiving the invitation from the Milky Way Alliance. The second day of the battle started. Looking at the first day's situation, everyone knew that it would either be a tough fight where everyone put out their special skills. In that case, it would be a worthwhile fight even if defeated. But if not, it would be a battle with large disparity in strengths. It would be important for the one in charge to show off appropriately by fighting with style and vigor. Maya Empire's team against Leia Sphinx Republic's team. The Maya Empire was also a long-lost civilization who had left the solar system long ago. However, compared to Atlantis, they were less lucky. They were ambitious, but they ran into the absolute powerhouse known as mankind. Following which they were crushed and taught a lesson, then being kidnapped onto the large ship of mankind. Of course, with the gradual disappearance of Earth's miracles, the chance for the Maya Empire to wipe out their national humiliation and to conspire a revenge came. Gradually, they proved their abilities on a universal stage. There was one point to note. At any time, the Maya Empire still maintained a friendly relationship with the solar system. If it weren't for the strong support from the Maya Empire, perhaps the position of the solar system as a permanent member would have been long gone. However, it was also not an intimate relationship as the Maya Empire was not willing to provide anything with regards to technological improvements. Wang Zheng and the rest followed the three generals, Meng Ao, Lai Guang and Dramok, to observe the battle together with the general representative of the Maya Empire. There were various versions of the legend dictating the complicated relationship between their two empires, and the reason seemed to be related to the Hidden Era. However, that was a period of history that had been forgotten. There were many records, but they were all as exaggerated as fairy tales and thus unbelievable. Wang Zheng was curiously sizing up the Maya's delegation representative. It seemed that they were not much different from mankind, just that his skin was more delicate and crystal clear. The most prominent feature of the Mayans was that they wore shining crystals. Also, regardless of male or female, regardless of their rank, including generals, all of them had small braids on their hair, and crystals were also tied to the end of the braids. At this moment, in the battle, in the preparation area of the Maya Empire, a shining humanoid-type mech rose from the underground transport. This was transported over from the Maya Empire by the Mayans. Even Aslan did not have every single mech in existence. The main reason was that the Mayans had very tight control over the exports of their mecha. Furthermore, they were also reclusive, all in order to maintain their egoism. Thus, they were not as easy to talk to, unlike the Atlanteans. Wang Zheng was examining the mecha inquisitively. The outer shell of the mech was embedded with pieces and pieces of crystals by a kind of unique technology. Besides illuminating light, these crystals were also emitting strange wave motions. They possessed their own unique attributes. The Maya civilization was also known as the Crystal Civilization. The so-called crystals were not those found as ornaments, but were formed from the crystallization of energy. This was the foundation of the Maya civilization. Much like the spiritual runes of the Atlanteans, it formed the backbone of their technological progress. The Mayans cherished their own treasures. However, mankind's research had never stopped, but they gave up quickly due to their physique. Even though the appearance of Mayans were like mankind, there were great differences in terms of the composition of their bodies' elements. The difference between them was even greater than some other alien races. And even though it was not clear how they did it, it was indeed true that only the bodies of Mayans were able to cause a reaction with the energy crystals. This formed the world of the Mayans. Unless mankind were willing to change themselves, they would not be able to use their technology. However, mankind still seemed fairly satisfied with themselves thus far. Everyone was looking at these shiny mecha curiously. They seemed to run contrary to the basic doctrine of wars. During battles, the more inconspicuous you were, the better it was. It was practically looking for a fight by being so shiny. Perhaps they were deliberately being low-key by being extra conspicuous, as the Maya Empire could not compete with Atlantis, yet no one looked down on them. The people present were all whispering to one another. Clearly they were all pretty interested in such things. As for mech experts like Yi Zissou, it was even more so as her eyes were wide open. This IG was practically the learning opportunity that she had always been yearning for. Through all these young experts, they were able to express the original intentions of the mech designers, and the inspirations that were sent out at this moment enabled her to grow and were of help to her. Afterwards, the choice of the Leia Sphinx Republic's team was the Ascending Wolf Mech, a type of half-beast mech. It was from the Super Mecha line that was newly developed by the top Mech Academy in the Leia Sphinx Republic. Leia Sphinx was a veteran and powerful country, one of the 10 permanent members of the Milky Way Alliance. But unlike the Solar System Federation, Leia Sphinx used its powerful military force to maintain their unshakable position as a permanent member in the Milky Way Alliance. The first battle was the round that dictated the momentum of the competition. Leia Sphinx sent out their player who was innately gifted at attacking skills and was the most aggressive. The gunshot to commence the start sounded. The crystal mech of Maya moved a step forward and then stood still. The twinkling crystals were reflecting light rays and looked as if it were poking fun at the opponent. Inside the Ascending Wolf mech, Blue Rick was being very cautious. The first round was undoubtedly of utmost importance. If they lost, it would cause their team members who would take the field in the following rounds to lose their momentum. So long as he won, their momentum would be increased greatly, so much so that it could even motivate and inspire the rest of the team. Perhaps even those who might have lost before would now gain the confidence and strength to win previously unthinkable battles. The reason why Blue Rick was able to be chosen to fight against Maya for the first battle was that besides being good at attacking, he also had a calm and steady mind, which was of utmost importance. The opponent was poking fun at him, but it did not matter. The Mayans were good at long-distance attacks due to their crystal mecha having strong defensive effects against lasers. However, the long-distance firepower of the Ascending Wolf mech was extremely violent. Blue Rick was also extremely talented with weapons. Boom! The Ascending Wolf mech erupted. Large energy lasers swept towards the Mayan mech. It was not a laser gun, but an energy laser cannon attack. It was an all-out barrage. An effective defense did not mean a complete defense. The Mayans must have expected him to commit completely, but he held back as well. This was just a demonstration of his strength. Idiot, it would be best not to use laser weapons against the Mayans. On the viewing platform, there were people familiar with the Maya Empire shaking their heads. It was apparent that the people of Leia Sphinx also did not believe that the Mayans were not afraid of laser weapons. Or maybe it should be said that as a country who was likewise situated on the pinnacle, they had never felt that they were disadvantaged in any way. The lasers erupted outwards, and the full force of the super mech line was brought to bear. However, the mech of Maya was actually not dodging nor avoiding the attacks. It was only standing there, allowing the lines and lines of lasers from the Ascending Wolf to strike its sparking and shiny mech. It did not explode, and there was also no damage. At this moment, under the encroachment of the lasers, it could be seen even more clearly that the outer shell of Maya's mech had an innate difference from the mecha of mankind in Atlantis. It was unlike an armor plate, but more like an external skin. It was especially true for the places that were struck by the lasers. They seemed extremely exquisite. What was this situation? Was that absorption of energy? Everyone that was present was stunned. All these years Maya had seemed to keep a particularly low profile. Who would have thought that their mecha had achieved such a technological breakthrough? Originally, the ability to withstand energy was at most around 50%, but now it could completely ignore laser attacks? Notwithstanding it, it seems to be absorbing. Yi Zisu's familiarity with mecha was already at a microscopic level, right down to the smallest details. Her observations were even more meticulous. As the lasers struck the crystal mech, a crystal membrane-like layer emerged on the surface, and it was absorbing. Blue Rick's face changed. He initially wanted to begin with a show of his strength to his opponent. It did not matter whether he hurt his opponent or not, but at least he hoped the enemy would be intimidated. But who would have thought that this would happen? This was completely different from the pre-battle information. Could it be that this was a new type of crystal mech by the Mayans? They were completely immune to energy-type weapons? There was no other choice but to unleash a physical attack. The Ascending Wolf had a half-beast transformation much like a werewolf. It had a pair of mech wings with sparkling blue lights on its back which served as a propeller. With a sudden flap, blue lights erupted and it spurred the mech to soar into the sky. The speed was extremely fast. This was not flight, but a short distance burst forward. Blue Rick had absolute confidence in close-distance battle as it was definitely the weak spot of the Mayans. Once the battle had fallen into his rhythm, even the team leader of Leia Sphinx might not be able to hold him down. This was him, Blue Rick's attack. There was a short distance advancement, and in an instant, the distance was shortened. However, the opponent Maya's mech still did not make any move to dodge or avoid. The arm of the mech did not even lift. Historically, the defeats of the Maya Empire during IG were always due to them being too close to their opponents and losing the advantage of their crystal power. Did they have an improvement in terms of close combat ability? No, as this was not the strong point of the Mayans. No matter how they practiced, it could not be compared to the other countries. However, if they exhibited what they were expert at to the pinnacle, they could also be invincible. The Mayan mech remained motionless. It was like the pilot had fallen asleep. But all of a sudden the crystal mech opened its mouth. The whole mech only did this one action, then a surge of energy burst out of the mouth of the mech, just like the roaring of an angry crystal war god. Blue Rick's response was limited, but under such a sudden attack, he had to be decisive. It was either the enemy's death or his own death. His energy shield melted in an instant, just like snow coming into contact with boiling water. Then the energy swept across the abdomen and the areas below the ascending wolf mech. Everything hit was disintegrated. It was just like being hit by the main cannon of a battleship. At this moment, the energy that erupted hit the protective wall of the battlefield, and the one small area became thoroughly red. Only when the staff of Aslan increased the energy value of the protective shield that the situation stabilized. The Mayans were very cold-hearted. They were equally powerful, and this seemed to be a signal. The generals were all discussing with the people around them. In the past, the Mayans had been pretty low profile, but what had happened this time around? Not only had they exposed their new technology that restrained mankind, they also inflicted serious injury. One must know that in the past, the Mayans used to be very gentlemanlike. The new technology of the Mayans gave everyone who was present a dire premonition. For the following 2 rounds, the Mayans did not remain motionless, but rather they followed up the victory and pressed home the attack. They did not give Leia Sphinx any time to adjust their state of mind at all, and also did not give their opponents any chance for close-distance attacks. The long-distance attacks of the Mayans were indeed exquisite, and it can be said to be unrivaled. This could also be attributed to the design and material of their mecha. As for the mecha of mankind, due to their structure, it resulted in slower movements. Especially for long-distance shooting, the Mayans had total dominance, and they were exactly the same, fearless with regard to energy attacks. It was an easy 3-0. No chance was given to Leia Sphinx. It was simply a listless fight, and this was totally different from information obtained before the battle. Without a doubt, this type of change aroused the attention of the whole Milky Way alliance. It might even result in a major redevelopment of mecha, as lasers being ineffective was absolutely unacceptable. The key to the problem must be found.